This one's for the sheepdogs. Guys, welcome. My name's Logan. I'm a former fireman of more than a decade. And one of the spaces that I see is a little bit of a gap is first responder mental health. And so I see a lot of different programs and facilities and things for military members. I take nothing from that. I personally did not serve in that capacity. But again, in more than a decade in the fire service and as an EMT, I know that there are a lot of similarities in mental health spaces for us. And it's either put into the category of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, which is the culture I grew up in as a very young fireman, or it's overhyped in the sense of, well, it's all soft and cuddly and, well, let's just find something in our childhood to blame for the things that we struggle with as we respond to tragedy and loss and the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And so if you are a fireman, EMS, so EMT or paramedic, nurse, anywhere in that category, law enforcement especially, please hang around because this is for you. I want to create a space for us to talk through those things, to talk about what's helped me. After I left the fire service, I became a wilderness guide, leading trips in the mountains in remote Wyoming and down into the Grand Canyon, up to 40-day expeditions, and found an incredible amount of healing and growth in those spaces for me personally. And so I hope to just bring some of that and share it with you, and maybe it'll help you in some way. But also I want to hear from you. If you've got something you're wrestling with or just a question, how to improve or grow in that space, please leave it down in the comments. I'm going to be working on some resources that are going to be available to you as well very soon. So for this one, I want to share a brief story. My first summer working in Wyoming with my bride with an organization up there called Solid Rock Outdoor Ministries. They're great. Look them up if you want to get out and experience that. I highly recommend. We had worked our first summer and we decided we were doing the RV life. We had sold everything and hit the road the spring before that we wanted to just go into the mountains ourselves. So we drove our camper up this really long, windy, dusty road to the middle of freaking nowhere to actually a fairly popular trailhead in the Wind River Mountains. We parked our RV in this field kind of on the edge of a tree line overlooking kind of the south entrance of this mountain range. And one morning we get up, it's cold, it's beautiful as the sun's coming up behind us. I got my coffee, I'm sitting out in the wilderness, talk about peace and growth and mental health. The coffee was feeding my soul per usual. And I hear some whistling, and I can't distinguish, not like a whistle like a coach uses or a referee, but like someone's using their mouth and they're whistling, and it's like some pattern to it. And as I realize it's kind of close, so I walk around our little 19-foot RV trailer, and I see what's entering from the woods into this field near us is a herd of sheep. And there's a lone shepherd, or really cowboy, a Spaniard on a horse, and he's got his sheepdogs that are running around the flock, and he's bringing them from wherever they had been in another field in another part of the mountains into this area where we were parked for however long. I don't know how long they were going to stay there. And so I just sat and I drank my coffee and I watched this go down. And so I see he rides his horse up to a high point kind of back behind our RV, and he's watching as the sheep are entering the field. And I'm talking like well over 200 sheep, pretty large flock for one shepherd. And again, with him is about a half dozen sheepdogs. You may see where I'm going with this, but I literally watched as he would whistle, the dogs would respond and protect the sheep. And what really blew my mind, there was a moment where he must have realized he was missing a sheep. And so he whistles. And at this point, the dirt road we had come in on, which again is a fairly popular trailhead, it is in the middle of nowhere. So sometimes there's no cars and sometimes it's busy. The sheep are entering the road and just kind of wandering. And as he whistles, and then he leaves. he turns and he enters back into the woods where they had just come from to go find this other sheep. And as he had done that, the whistle, I watched the sheepdogs, and they literally surrounded the sheep. And at one point, cars start coming up this dirt road. And there were 3 sheepdogs from the 6 that literally stood between the cars and the flock of sheep. And they positioned themselves in such a way there was no way to get around off this road to get anywhere they could harm the sheep. The cars literally just put in park and turned off. They were close enough I could hear them shut their vehicles off. There ended up being about 4 cars that came up the road over the span of 15 minutes or so. The shepherd was completely gone, but the sheepdogs held their ground and they protected the flock. And so as I was seeing this go down, and I'm a Christian, and so the whole idea of the shepherd leaving the 99 and going to find the lost sheep holds deep meaning for me. And whether you're a person of faith or not, I think that story from the Bible and how Jesus talks about the sheep and how he cares so much for them, but he really is here to find the lost sheep and go rescue them. Again, I was kind of getting teary as I sipped my coffee and watched this go down. And as the shepherd returned, he came back up, he did his whistles, and they just kept going about their day. But I also had another thought. And so for the sheepdogs, for the watchmen on the wall, fire, EMS, law enforcement especially, these 3, who helps the sheepdogs? Who makes sure they're okay? You've been in any amount of time, you understand that that people throw around as a fire instructor for the state of Tennessee, and I used to mention, not around mental health, but I would say, hey, the sheep, we had to look out for each other because no one else is doing it for us. I think there's a lot of truth to that still, in that there are some resources out there for first responders, but not as many as maybe with military members, which again, do their thing. I take nothing from them, and they need it as well as we do. So I share that story just to say, what's the voice you're listening to? And whether that's a faith thing for you or part of your spiritual journey or even just your own body, what's it telling you? Check in with yourself, check in with your brother and sister sheepdogs, and make sure they're okay. Not a, you good? Yeah, I'm good. There's a context for that, right? Like when we're still on shift and we have an incident, maybe your department helps you debrief, that's great if it's there. But we all know if you're on shift and there's officers around and things like that, higher ranking officers, lips tend to be tight. And so at the gym, at the bar, while you're smoking a cigar together sometime, don't take the, I'm all right, at face value. If you've been in it any amount of time, you've lost brothers and sisters like I have, before their time and at their own hand. And we tend to hold these things as our responsibility, yet what changes? Do I ask better questions next time to someone else who's showing some signs and symptoms? Or do I accept the nod and the I'm okay for what they're saying? So look out for each other out there. Hang around, post in the comments. I want to hear your feedback. I want to connect with you. If you've got something that you're wrestling with, I want this to eventually become a more closed, safe space for us as first responders to process and just connect. It can be a lonely space even though we're around a lot of people. And so this is coming from someone who experienced that on a very deep level. So I appreciate you. If you stuck around, we'll see you soon.